Hey, welcome back. My name's Will Fountain, and this is
David Tinsley.
And this is the Novice and the Pro, brought to you by Lenders Cooperative. So the last episode, we talked about what is an LSP and how can lenders tap into that, and why would they need to tap into that. And during that episode, we mentioned another acronym inside the banking industry, which is PLP.
That's right.
Let's unpack that just for real quick. Like, what does that mean? Let's start there. What does it mean?
Okay, so that refers to the Preferred Lender Program.
Okay.
Okay, so under the 7A program, you have to obtain SBA's approval on every loan, right, that you do. SBA allows you to have that authority delegated to the lender once they have proven their ability to make loan decisions that meet SBA's SOP, right? Their guidelines for how the loan should be done. So in a sense, once you've done a certain number of loans, you show you know how to service them correctly. You don't have all these errors on a monthly reporting basis of what you have to tell the SBA. So long as you've sort of demonstrated we have people in place that know how to make these loan decisions, they will delegate that authority to you.
Okay. All right, let's slow down. You said is that the SBA is approving these loans, or approving the guarantee of these loans? Like, you've checked the boxes.
That's correct. So when you think of it, the guarantee is money that's set aside, right?
Okay. In case it goes south.
That's right. So the guarantee represents funding, and so the approval is for the funding of those guaranteed dollars.
Meaning we've underwritten this. It's in the spirit of the program.
That's right.
Okay. So all right, that's great. So they essentially, if somebody's getting into this, they have to push loans or packages to the SBA.
Yes, that's right. So you have two ways to do it. Number one, you can send the loan to the SBA, and they will. So let's say you're just getting started in SBA lending. Okay, so if it's your first 7A loan as a lender, you could even work with the local district office in the SBA. They might help you kind of get started. There's an application process that you have to go through to become a lender in the first place, right? So you're putting together a package. You're trying to make sure you've got all the different requirements for it. You send it off to SBA. They'll review it and tell you everything you missed, and you'll go through that process. But when it gets done, they will have approved it themselves. SBA will come back and return something to you that shows, here's our approval.
Okay.
And now this makes it easier in the beginning part, because you know that
you've got a friend.
That's right. So they've told you this is how we've approved it. So there's no risk from the standpoint of what if the loan decision wasn't the right decision, because SBA themselves made the loan decision. Okay. You have to close it the way they tell you, but that's the terms and conditions. And we can talk about it some other time too, in more detail.
Sounds good.
But essentially, it's here's the terms of the loan. Here's the conditions you have to meet in order to be able to do all that. And it's a nice little document that's prepared for you in an SBA system. But the point is, the lender didn't carry the risk on that loan decision. Now, the downside to that is that you have to wait for someone at SBA to look at what you sent to them.
And the downside of that would be what? Time?
Correct.
Okay.
You have to wait. So some
general
lenders,
idea of how long that takes? Is it dependent upon the package and the complexity of the deal?
SBA, to their credit, have sped this up quite a bit in recent years and months. This used to be, you could guarantee probably an extra month in trying to get a loan done, or at least every person I talked to felt that way.
Without the PLP
without having that PLP. Yeah.
So you mentioned a certain number of loans. Is it a certain number, like a hard number?
So to qualify, and again, this is more recent, but effectively you have to have done at least So at least 10 7A loans within the last 2 years. All right.
Okay.
Which is not that big a number. I mean, that's something that if you were growing a department, you could reach in 6 to 10 months. Months, and then you could see yourself easily within that first year, sort of getting to that. SBA wants lenders to get that delegated authority.
They do?
They're generally in favor of that, because what it means is that you have people internally to a bank who are specialized in this. They're overseeing it directly. You're confident that the loans that are being made are sort of following the spirit of the program.
You're well versed.
Right.
You're experts.
Because at the end,
are knowledgeable.
The point of this program isn't isn't for the benefit of the bank to make loans. The benefit is to the small businesses.
Let's get the dollar.
And let's face it, the business is benefited when the bank is the person sitting there in the market making the loan to the person who all those people are going to the same events in the community. You get better partnership when it's someone local versus having to send it to someone in who knows where to review it.
So 10 loans over 2 years.
That's right.
Anything else or is it just that?
Well, so that's your minimum. That's your minimum from a production standpoint. You essentially also have to demonstrate that you've got the expertise in-house at the bank to be able to have the appropriate oversight. And in many cases, this might only be a handful of people. It might be just, it's in theory, it could be one person. You probably wouldn't have just one person in an SBA program because getting to the 10 loans within the 2-year time period starts becoming a very difficult proposition.
Yeah.
But a bank isn't one person either. So you probably would rely on other people in that program, even if they're not fully dedicated to SBA. So, yeah. But the point is, at a minimum of 10, you have to demonstrate that the loans that you have on the books are they're not all going bad. That you have to be able to show a certain quality. There's no errors in the reporting.
So is there a timeline then? So if you got to demonstrate that they're not going bad, and what if I just came out, guns blazing, I booked 10 loans in 3 months?
So there's no hey, you have to demonstrate loans that have been on there for X number of days. That's not in there. That's not a necessarily requirement. But you do have to be in good standing with your regulators. So the thing is, if you're making loans already, which you have to demonstrate that you know how to make these loans. So if you're in good standing with your regulators, you're probably not making a whole bunch of bad loans at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's sort of all, and anything that SBA agrees and looks at, that doesn't overrule or remove the requirement of you to be in good standing with your regulators as a lender anyway.
Now, so I've talked with a few bank management, lender management teams, banks or credit unions. Some have wanted, their plan is to go essentially become a PLP lender,
yeah.
And some are not. Some are like, no, I would rather have
so we talked about
oversight.
Yeah, so we talked about the downside of being a non-delegated lender.
Yeah,
is the timing of it. It might take a little while for it to get approved. Obviously, that would mean the benefit of being a PLP is that you have the authority, you can do it right away. So it's effectively instantaneous. Now the SBA on their end, and we've talked about this in a previous episode, where they have their sort of that fraud framework, and they check all these compliance codes to come back and give you confidence either way that this is an eligible borrower. So not too long ago, there was a greater risk that the bank, the preferred lender, carried, because if SBA later determined that this wasn't an eligible borrower because of something that was outstanding, in theory,
it would fall back on the lender.
It would fall back on the lender, and that guarantee might be denied.
Yeah. Which is why I feel like a lot of folks
were nervous about that, right? Why take on the risk?
Might have a hesitancy to become an SBA lender or make SBA loans.
But see, the thing is, if you're not making that under that delegated authority, SBA is making that decision for you. So that's why many lenders don't want to become a preferred lender.
Yeah,
because SBA's made that decision. And
they want some backup, some assurity.
That's right. Okay. However, that being said, there's a lot of really experienced expertise out there at making these loans, and they know what's eligible. SBA's changes with the most recent SOP that over the last year, they change it in such a way that, in a sense, the bank, the responsibility of the bank to review this is far less than it used to be. Now, you can rely on the information provided, so you're not expected in that same sense to do the level of background check, but there's still the overarching principle that don't send a loan to the SBA you know isn't good. So that never goes away, but that's more of a principle than it is necessarily the guidance, because SBA is saying they're taking on that responsibility with their that fraud framework, the compliance checks, the codes that come back that you have to clear. Okay. So that's what's happening there.
All right. If I'm an operator, I'm probably trying to get to PLP status.
Right.
Because I think timeliness to your borrowers puts you at a competitive advantage.
It does.
I think it's with the spirit of the program. If we're going to be in this business, we need to know it in and out. And knowing it in and out is probably putting, the responsibility back on us. We're the PLP, and we
Right.
still have the assurances, as you just discussed, with some of these SOP revisions that have come out in the last year or
Yeah.
so. But
Well, and one of the other things that working with other parties in the loan program is that you sort of surround yourself with people who know what they're doing. You want to rely on people who have expertise, even though an agent like that you're working with in a loan program might be able to provide you assistance. You're also getting the benefit of just sort of their opinion on it, which in the end, lender's responsible. SBA looks for them to have oversight of the program, but ultimately, more eyes the better. Looking at the loan, and again, I think it sort of makes sense that the person making the loan decision, the closer they are to the business, the better for the business. And the point of it is the economic development with small businesses. That's the whole point of this program. It's
Right.
not for the banks to make the loans.
Yeah.
They're using the banks to make loans to benefit the businesses.
yeah, it's the conduit.
Right.
All right, so just to recap it, it sounds to me like if I was an operator of a lending institution, I'm probably working to get my PLP status, but I'm probably also keeping an LSP or one or two LSPs real close,
Mm-hmm.
and relying on their expertise, because that's going to reduce the overhead
That's
and
right.
some risk and inside of my lending operation.
Mm-hmm.
So is that how you would, if you were an operator, is that,
Yes.
or would you staff it up and just be like, I am the,
There's different ways to get there. I mean, so to sit here and say like this is the way you should always do it, it's not going to fit every scenario. But the thing is, there's a lot of work that goes into making a loan, and you get to an efficiency standpoint where if you're making enough loans, it makes sense to be PLP. And if you're doing that, if you're going after that PLP authority, you really want to have resources in place that help you demonstrate the overall expertise you have in it. So you might have several people overseeing it, but if you're going to do enough loans to support that, you probably need labor to make that happen. LSPs are kind of the easiest way to do it, because if you're growing, you can quickly bring in more resources that you're not having to, you're not having to hire, train, oversee, and then have that overhead that you're carrying.
maybe layer in those expertise as
That's right.
the business develops.
Yeah, and the important thing is if you're going to pick a partner like that, what you want to do is be able to have somebody that kind of, if you want to grow out of the use of one, that you're not having a difficult time doing that.
Yeah.
All
right.
So.
Well, that's been helpful. PLP we discussed today. LSP we discussed in our last episode, and we'll have to do some thinking about what's next. If you guys have any questions, or if there's anything we should cover, feel free to shoot us a message and let us know what we should talk about, and we'll just have this little chat and try and keep it short and easy to listen to. So thanks so much for listening, and we hope you have a great day.